Hi, I'm Adam from Room Raccoon, and this video is just going to give you a quick tour of our property management system. So I'm going to start with our calendar screen here, and you'll see there's a variety of reservations already here in a variety of different colours, and I'm just going to sort of briefly talk you through what that all means. So the green reservations here mean that booking's been checked in. The blue means it's been made but not yet checked in. The tealy blue over here means they've checked in via our online check-in facility, and then the gold reservations here mean they're a provisional booking, and then finally the greyed out bookings over here means that guest has checked out of the property. Then you'll see in the corner of some of these reservations, you'll notice there's some triangles on the left hand side and on the right hand side. So again, the ones on the right hand side just sort of signify payment status. So if they're orange, it means no payments have been made. If they're yellow, it means a part payment or a deposit has been made, but there's still a balance outstanding. And if there's no triangle at all, then that means that the reservation's been paid and there's no balance outstanding. On the left-hand side, if there's a blue triangle, that just signifies it's part of a group reservation. So first things first, if you get a telephone call and someone wants to add a reservation to the system, really straightforward to do. So I'm just going to add a booking for next Friday in a Superior room. So I just click on here, launch the new booking window. If that person stayed with you before, you can just find them in the system. So I'm going to add my colleague Niels, he's already in there, or I could have added a new booker detail. Just select the duration of his stay, select the rate type, so bed and breakfast, the price will appear here, save it. And that reservation now, if I go back here, that reservation's in the system. Now if I need to move that reservation for any reason, I can just drag and drop it. So move it down to room 3. If I move it to the same category of room, it'll just do it. If I change it to a different room category, a more expensive one for example, I will just get a message that pops up and says, do I want to keep the price or change the price? So if I keep it, I'm essentially giving that person a complimentary upgrade. If I change it, I'm just moving it to the correct price for that room that's in the system. If you hover over the bookings, you'll get to see a bit more detail, sort of notes, add-ons booked, duration, all of that sort of stuff. Now if I click on a reservation, that'll take me into the screen here. So I can see, for example, that Mrs. Coyle has stayed with me 7 times before. Got some sort of information around there. I've got some notes on her, she's a vegetarian. And this is also part of a group booking, so there's a Mr. Galloway on this booking as well. And we can see that they have added a variety of add-ons, so some beers, a baby bed and a bottle of Prosecco. Now what we can do is we can allocate those particular items to a reservation. So you'll see these have all been linked to room 8, which is Mr. Galloway's room, as I can see down here. So what that means is when it actually comes to raising an invoice, what I can do, create an invoice, and I can just create a general invoice that includes everything and create that. But what I'm actually going to do, I want to create a specific invoice for both parties because they want to pay separately. So firstly I'm going to create an invoice for Mrs. Coyle. So just click her and that'll click the items associated to her reservation. So that's just the 2 nights broken down by night. You can group them together. So I'm just going to create that there. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to create a second invoice. Mr. Galloway stuff, and I can just change the booker up here to Mr. Galloway. I'm just going to create that invoice again. And that's cool. Now what you'll notice here is we've got a couple of payments here, so then I can allocate those payments against an invoice. So I'm just going to link that to 120. I'm going to link this one to the other invoice. And what you'll see is if I go into this particular invoice, so I'm just going to view the second one, the Mr. Galloway one. you'll just get a nice branded tax invoice, everything breaking down there. We're choosing to break these down by night, but you can just group the room sale line in one if you want to. That's absolutely fine. We can obviously just print that off for the guest, or if I just click here, that'll just invoice that to the lead booker. So if I want to change that, I can change that. Absolutely fine. And that'll be sent. And we can see down here that that document's already been sent, so that's great. And then, so I'm going to come out of here now. Let's just save that. Back to our reservation screen. And again, if I check a guest out, it'll do the same thing. It will just automatically create that tax invoice for me. So we'll see that that invoice has been created. So that's great. Then invoice has been created. Just need to log a payment against it, which we'll do shortly after at checkout. Again, if you go into those reservations, you can click on the timeline at the top, and that will just give you a full time-stamped audit trail of everything that's happened and who performed the action, so you can sort of see a variety of things there, from the reservation being added to room changes to check-ins to checkouts to add-ons to payments to things being sent through. So that'll be all there for all of the reservations. And then back to our calendar, what we also have along the top here is we can see our breakfast list. So if I just pull that up, and I can see today that I would have had in a number of people for breakfast. So I can see some of those because they booked at the particular rate type, a room only rate type or an OTA rate type. They didn't actually have breakfast, but these 4 guests did here. I can, if it's easier, just show that by those having breakfast. Just split that down. That'll also pull in any notes, their rate type, and that sort of stuff. Same thing if I go to the housekeeping report, I'll have a sort of variety of notes on here, so I can mark those rooms as cleaned, and then I'll have sort of whether there's check-ins, checkouts, changeovers today, if they're sort of partway through a stay, if they're just arriving. In larger properties, we can assign rooms to particular housekeepers. I can also add maintenance tasks on here. And again, that'll all pull through. Then again, you can give your housekeeping team limited access to the system. We can just print it out, or we can just schedule the emails to be sent to the housekeeping team every morning, whatever's going to be easier. So that's a quick tour of the calendar. What I also wanted to show you is just how we handle the sort of guest database. So I'm just going to go over here to our bookers tag, and we'll see down here we've got a nice long list of people that have stayed with us time, and you'll see some of those over here have stayed with us on multiple occasions, some of them once, some of them have companies, some of them are individuals. We've got more information about others, but that's probably more to do with my sloppy entry of information into my test account. But what you'll also see here, we can just download that customer list if we want to export that. So it's useful if you're going to, if you're working with something like MailChimp for marketing purposes and want to send an email blast out, we can just download that data and send it straight into MailChimp. And we can collect sort of marketing permissions and notes and all of that stuff. We can filter these lists. And what you can also see is if you go to some of these, and you'll see some of the company records, what we can do behind here is obviously store information about the company. So I've got a contact name, but then I've also got the company details, so the VAT number, where I should be sending invoices, and additional information. I've got some ID stuff here, but where it gets quite useful is we can also set negotiated rates for companies. And we can do that in one of two ways. So we can either say we're just going to apply a discount to specific or all rate types, or we can actually just set a wholly negotiated rate. So we can just say when this company books, they pay £100. Or we can say, look, they just get a 5% discount. We can then select what that applies to. So it could apply to everything. So I could just scroll right down to the bottom here and select all, or we can make it apply to sort of specific rate types. So you can see for this one, most of these, they get the benefit of a 5% discount when they're booking a room only rate type with me, and that's really cool. So if you add that company, it'll automatically recognize it has a negotiated rate. You don't have to put anything in, it's just going to display the correct rate. And then alongside that, we've obviously got things like sort of discount vouchers and gift card codes that work independent of those things. So that's pretty useful. And then I just wanted to show you how we do reporting. So I'm going to go to our report tab here and our performance center. We'll start there, and this is just very much an overview of what is happening in your hotel, B&B, in whatever it may be. So what this shows you is, look, where are my bookings coming from? Obviously my data is a little bit skewed in my test account. You probably expect to see things like a decent slice to someone like Booking.com or Expedia or whatever other OTAs you may work with. Normally we've got our occupancy rates, we've got where our reservations are coming from in the physical sense, what countries, and then we've got some sort of our key figures down here. So what's our gross revenue from room sales, VAT, then sort of key metrics like occupancy rate, RevPAR and length of stay. I've then got my sort of revenue from my add-ons being tracked for that period, and then we've sort of got some breakdowns by our room types, so revenue and occupancy for those room types over the period. Up the top here we can set the period, so we can run that for a month, we can run it for a quarter, a year, or any sort of custom period you want. You can then also stack that and review that for the sort of same time. So if I want to compare that with the previous month, I can just select that, and it just gives me a sort of a bit of a where am I, how do things look. So it's quite useful if you want to do that year on year. So, you know, what does this quarter look like compared to last year? Fairly useful. But as I say, that's pretty much an overview. We've then got some sort of more detail behind that. So I've got here, we've got our payments report, and that is just a sort of a nightly audit of payments. And we split that down into two types. We split that down into stay and into payment. The difference being you'll be taking deposit payments for reservations that are in the future, and you'll also be taking for payments for people checking in and checking out on a day-to-day basis. So we just split those down. We then just group those by the method down here. So it's just a payment reconciliation. And if you are using our accounting integration, and we integrate with most of the leading software, so QuickBooks, Sage, Xero, what that enables us to do is directly post your sales invoices into your accounting system as well as all of your payments. So you'll get that breakdown, and then what you will get is you'll get a summary of those ledger postings in our finance report here. So we're just going to break that down. Let's just change that to current year. That'll just give us a breakdown of sort of various, what my different ledgers are. So my net accommodation, some of my add-ons here are going to different ledger codes, and then I've got my sort of VAT line down here, and then my various sort of payments, how are they being logged, and that. Just got a summary. If I click on any one of these, I'll get an itemized listing of those postings that make up the figures behind that. But that should be replicating what goes into your ledgers on your accounting system. We also have a debtors report over here, which is pretty useful, particularly if you're working with corporates or if you're working on more of a self-catering model where you're taking payment in prior to the guest arriving. And simply put, we set what the window is, when the due date is, and we'll just really flag here any reservations that are overdue, and you can also see reservations that are coming due. So for these ones here, I've got a nice large selection, some of them very overdue, so poor management on my part. but we know, look, this invoice was raised back in October of last year. It's now 146 days overdue, and that's a company one. So what I can do, it gives me a good summary, but I can just actually from here just go, look, I've got a reminder set up to go here that says can you pay it, and it will link straight through to my payment pages. I can also add custom content in there if I prefer and change that and send a particularly sort of tailored message if there's particular circumstances or relating to a conversation we might have had, and then I can just hit send that through, and that'll go straight through to them, and just hopefully enables you to keep track. Then finally along here we've got our sort of how well do I use Room Raccoon, which is just very much includes our referral link. So if you recommend someone to us, we'll say thank you in monetary form, but more than that, this sort of gives you a summary of, there's a variety of metrics we record within Room Raccoon, just how well you're using the system. It helps us ensure you're getting the most out of it. So we'll use this to flag to you and say, look, hey, how come you're not using sort of guest documents? Is there a problem? Do you know how to set them up? Do you need some help? Or you're not running many payments through the system, or whatever it may be. But it just helps us keep track of how you're using it, and if there's maybe gaps in your knowledge or gaps in how you're using the system, and enable us to sort of help you with those. Then beyond those kind of established reports up here, we also have a custom reporting function. So if I go back to my calendar screen here and go to the list button, what that'll instantly do is just pull up all reservations for a set window. I think it defaults to the week ahead, but I can obviously sort of change that and look at that for a longer period of time, and I can start sort of filtering that if I want to. If I want to look for a specific room, or look at it for a specific guest, or whatever it may be, status, all of these things, I can kind of change those filters and reset them. And again, that's all, we can export all of that out, or we can export the selection of invoices for a specific period or specific filter you've applied, which is particularly useful maybe if you're not using our accounting integration, albeit a much more manual approach. But what we can also do is create custom reports. So we can show you the data you need to see. So I've got quite a few set up in here. So if I just go to my revenue report, and this is just really a summary of, look, I just want to see bookings over a certain period of time. I just want to see some specific data, namely I want to see price. I want to see my net price and my add-on price, and I want to check that they're paid, and I want to pull in any notes, and then I want to see the totals of that information, and I maybe want to export that out. And we can do that in a variety of ways. You can create new templates. So to create a new template, simply give it a title. I'm just going to call this test, and then we can just see what fields we want to make active. So I want to show my check-in and check-out date. Maybe I want to run this on a specific room. So I'm going to run this on a specific room here. Let's just run that for family room 11 for whatever reason. I want to see the guest name of the people booked in. I want to see if they've got a company, so on and so forth. There's a long list, and we can sort of make these things active or inactive, and then save that as a template. It's a slightly odd one, but save that as a template, and that'll instantly sort of pull that data across. And then we can sort of create those in different ways, and we can work with you to help us create those if you're trying to extract specific data or replicate templates that you want. The reason we do it that way is we did have sort of a number of just pretty standard reports, but we find they kind of vary a little bit from hotel to hotel. So Hotel A wants to see something slightly different to Hotel B, but they both call it a performance report or a net sales report. So we just give you the freedom to craft those templates as you would like, and then once they're saved, they can be scheduled to be run, or they can just be run ad hoc by you at any point in time and just pull that data out of the system nice and easily. And that's it for today's video, just in terms of a summary of our PMS. Obviously, if you have any questions or you'd like to arrange a demo, please do get in touch. Thanks so much. Cheers. Bye bye.